Early retirement, retiring at 50, 40, or even 30 years old. Is it possible? Is it a good idea? Should we make early retirement our goal? In this video, I want to talk about the idea of early retirement and show you both the good side and the bad side. So, as always, let's get into the board. Let's talk about the good and the not so good side of aiming for an early retirement and how we can achieve optionality without selling your soul. For those of you who are landing on this channel for the first time, my name is Patrick Mabilog. My friends call me Kiko. I'm an entrepreneur, investor, and a Lord of the Rings fan. Quick disclaimer before I dive into the topic, I am not a financial advisor. I don't recommend any investments, but I do highly encourage education. And that's the reason why I made this YouTube channel to really educate people on finance, how they can grow their income, and how they can use that income to give them the life that they've always dreamed of. So let's talk about this concept of FIRE, or the financial independence and retire early movement. The FIRE movement became really popular over the past couple of years, especially when this blogger named Mr. Money Mustache, who I follow a lot and I actually still admire until today, the idea of the financial independence retire early movement is that if you work for a good portion of your professional years and save as much as you can, that you can probably retire early by the time you hit 50, 40, or even 30 years old, depending on your income and your savings rate. But the idea of financial independence and retiring early is that you can escape the rat race and then travel the world, spend as much time as you can on hobbies, and give up entirely on your 9 to 5. And that you don't have to work as much anymore, or probably not even work at all. And so I've been really studying this idea of financial independence over the past couple of years, primarily because we want to also achieve financial independence. And for a long time, we also wanted to retire early. And the goal for me, when I started to understand the concepts of financial independence, I thought to myself, what would it be like if I could also retire early? If my wife and I could retire early, and we can just spend the rest of our life doing whatever we want, whenever we want, with whomever we want. But then I started to realize that there were some problems. Now, if you want to understand the concept of financial independence a little bit more, let me do a shameless plug. So, I created an online program called the Financial Independence Formula, the Filipinos' Guide to Building Wealth and Retiring on Your Own Terms. Financial independence is such a foreign topic for Filipinos because it's not something that we talk about a lot. And so that's the reason why I created this YouTube channel. And that's also the reason why I created this online course, because a lot of people have been asking questions and they're saying, hey, why don't you come up with a program that helps me understand in full what the idea of financial independence looks like? And so if you want to check out that course, I'll leave the link to the program somewhere in the description and probably somewhere up here, down there. For a very limited time, this course plus program is available at 3,000 pesos. And the reason why it's priced that way is that it's actually packaged with a privatized or a personalized financial independence roadmap for you. So think of it this way: you're not just paying for a course, you're not just watching videos, but there are also some worksheets that I highly encourage people who join the program to send to me so that I can study it. I can create a personalized plan for you so that you can implement it in at your own level. So this is a plan. This is not financial advice. This is not an investment roadmap. This is more of like understanding in its entirety what a picture of a financial independent life looks like for you. And if you want that kind of clarity, then once again, you can be a part of the financial independence formula. So let's go back into the topic. Financial independence is so powerful for me as a concept because it's not really about the money. It's about living the life that you want to live. And so a lot of people, because they believe so much in financial independence, have kind of embraced this idea that, hey, why don't we reach financial independence as early as possible and retire early, which is a good concept. But like I mentioned, there are some problems along the way. So for me, there are two problems when it comes to retiring early and the problem with the financial independence, retire early movement. The first problem is the problem of extreme frugality. where people are going to extremes to save 50, 70, 80, 90% of their income just so that they can reach their fire number. And so you hear these stories of people retiring in their 30s, but for the good part of their 20s and early 30s, they had to live on instant noodles. They would bike to work, essentially putting so much emphasis on delayed gratification to the point that they have to live like crap for a good decade or probably even more. So that's the first problem. The second problem is the idea that when you do retire early, many people realize that later on that retirement can get extremely boring. And so when they do retire early, they end up degrading a lot faster because they're no longer active, they're no longer using their, their brains, their minds to strategize and come up with ideas that are actually productive, not just for them but for the people around them. And other problems. But just for the sake of this video, to kind of like pound on the topics that I do want to address directly, I want to focus on these two. Now, I don't want this to just be another video where some person on YouTube is complaining about retiring early. I want to give you actual solutions. And so the solution that I've found and the solution that we have been implementing in our own personal life so that we can still retire early but not have to deal with extreme frugality, eating noodles for the rest of my life because that's also not very healthy, is to have a sense of balance. And so if I look at my life, there are a couple of very clear things that I want. No, so and there are also a lot of things that I clearly don't want. And I find that many people, when they deal with the whole fire movement, many times the problem that they face is that they don't really have a clear understanding of the kind of life that they want to live after retirement because they really don't know what they want once they do have work optionality. And so for us, for example, and for me more specifically, there are some things that I'm very clear about that doesn't really matter to me. Number one is the clothes I wear. I don't really like to dress up as much. I've got like a black shirt and pants on that I'll probably use like 5 7 times, as long as of course it's clean. But I don't really spend a lot on clothes. I don't also spend a lot on cars. And so our car, for example, is a secondhand Montero. And we're always looking for means and ways to save on transportation. I don't really believe in driving fancy cars. As much as possible, we don't buy brand new cars. But again, that's just me, right? I mean, I'm not saying that that's the kind of life that you want to live. But on the other side, I do spend on certain things. Like I like to spend on watches, for example. So I do like to buy, really nice watches, and that's something that I invest in. And I also like to travel, especially when I'm traveling with family. Although when we do travel, we don't really focus on traveling a lot. We like to just travel, as a frequent, yeah, yes, as frequently as possible. But we try to limit the number of travels that we have, but focus more on the quality of the travel. But we do like to spend on nice hotels, nice experiences. We do go a little bit all out on the shopping side. Well, at least my wife and kids do. And so we want to make sure that we have money to a lot to those travels. So the concept here that I want to really break down is this concept of money dials, which is an idea by Ramit Sethi, where he talks about life having this set of money dials. That's a dial, by the way. Doesn't look like a dial, looks like a sun. But okay, like the dials that you have, the knobs that you have on like volume when you want to control the volume of a speaker or something like that, right? Like life, we have money dials, meaning there are areas in our life where we probably like to spend less, or we probably would spend less, and if we could care a whole lot less, right? I mean, like for me, for example, cars, clothes, those things don't really give me the joy that it does for most people. Again, some people want to spend on that. I personally don't. But there are other things in our life as well that we like to spend on. Like for me, again, it's watches, vacations, learning. It's probably it. I mean, so going back to the idea of retiring early, the idea that you have to be extremely frugal if you want to reach financial independence, you also want to have a certain amount of balance, meaning that maybe you can cut down and dial down on the things that you don't really care about, and then spend more on the things that you do care about, and see how you can balance that with continuing to invest and set aside for the future. And so the idea of financial independence, retiring early, as being this big move of like maximizing your savings and cutting down on everything, not buying anything at all, can sometimes be unsustainable. There are many people who do kind of reach retirement, but when they are at a point where they are financially independent, they just can't retire because they've spent so much of their life just saving, saving, saving. And so when it's time for them to spend the money that they have saved over the long period of time, that they can't because they've just built this whole identity around extreme frugality. And the other issue there is that sometimes there are some people, it can become unsustainable. So as they do start to build towards happiness later on in life, they do it by also sacrificing the present. I believe that sustainable financial independence does not just take into account the future, but it also takes account the present. So that's the first problem and the solution that I want to recommend. The second problem, low impact and productivity, my solution there is to shift our thinking about work. And we think about work as this chore where we have to work, right? Because, well, we use work to generate income, right? That's the only thing that we do we think about when we think about work. That's a really bad peso sign. I'm still practicing this. Probably time for me to buy a Waco uh, board or something. But again, we're thinking about work as this lesser evil, where it's either work or be broke. But I've also come to realize that work is a whole lot more multidimensional. As I try to understand the concept of financial independence, building income, building financial freedom, and using your resources to give you the life that you want. So, what is work? At the end of the day, work for me personally is actually purpose, right? Having a sense of meaning in what you're doing, where the thing that you are pursuing does not just enrich you, but also helps other people. It's also something that ideally you are passionate about. And when you talk about passion, I'm not just talking about like enjoying, liking the things that you do, but the idea of passion really it goes back to sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice for? Because it just gives you a whole amount of joy that makes the sacrifice worth it. And lastly, is that the idea of work is something that does have to generate profit. We like the idea of purpose, we like the idea of passion, but I think we understand that even if something is purposeful and we are passionate about something, if it does not generate profit, then it's not really work, right? It's just something that you do as a hobby or something that you do as some sort of charity or some, I mean, if you want to call it that. But work should be an extension of all of these things, plus more. And more importantly, it should also be something that you can turn into a profession. You can do it for a living, that you can do it professionally speaking. And this goes to this concept once again of ikigai, this Japanese concept of finding something that you love, that other people need, something that you are good at. Proficiency is another idea there, that you have a certain level of expertise, that you are an expert at what you do. And that is, for me personally, an extension of your purpose and your passion, because as you become an expert of something, you start to love it more and it becomes something that people start to benefit from. And lastly is you want to get paid for what you do. I really like this concept of ikigai because it's highly sustainable as a way of life, right? If you look at the Japanese culture, they actually don't have a concept of retirement, because their idea is to find your ikigai, is to find something that you love, something that other people need, something that you're good at, something that you can get paid for. You can still have high impact and high productivity even if you do reach financial independence. So all in all, really what this really means for me, and hopefully one thing that I can kind of like share with you, is creating once again this idea of balance, where you do have both the work that you love, that you can also enjoy today, and something that can also build future income for you. Thankfully, I have found this balance of doing work that I love, a business that does generate good revenue for me and my family, but also using that revenue to create future income, passive income, that we're starting to build as early as now. I've shared in many of my videos as well what those passive income streams are. We have properties, we have investments in different dividend paying funds. And those are funds that will eventually generate revenue for us. So my encouragement for everyone is not just to shoot for early retirement, but to do it in a way that's sustainable, not having to resort to extreme frugality, and also at the same time do it in a way where it allows you to do work that you love later on, not just stop work entirely. So hopefully this video was valuable to you. If it was, then please do share it with someone that you think could learn from this. And as always, you can subscribe to this channel, support me by following the rest of the journey. And that's it for today's video, and I'll see you next time around. Bye.